Think we might have our guest on the line.
Do we have our guest on the line?
All right.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm excited.
I'm excited, too. I'm doubly excited. And I was talking to Rick a little bit earlier, and I was talking to Matt. He's like, wow, you know Miss Bev Smith? I'm like, I said, quiet as it's kept. I said, Miss Bev Smith was one of the people who gave me my first start in radio some years ago. If it wasn't for Miss Bev Smith and Miss Alice Bell, Kevin Avis may not be doing radio today.
All right.
So she was one of the people that inspired me. She's my radio mom, and I'm so glad to finally have her on the air. Miss Bev Smith.
Hey, Bev.
Hey, how are you doing?
How are you?
I'm blessed and highly favored.
All right.
And I know, Miss Bev, you have such a very busy schedule, and I'm glad you made some time to come on the air with us today.
Well, I promised, and you guys are family. And so we just rearranged things, and here I am.
Oh, great. We appreciate it.
And this is in a kind of an awkward position because usually I'm on the other side asking the questions. Now I get asked the question.
I was saying that to Kevin. I said, this is a kind of unusual role to be on the other side.
Definitely. So fire away.
All right.
Well, Ms. Bev, for a lot of people who do not know, tell folks how you first got involved in broadcasting. I mean, you've been on TV, you've been on radio, you've been consumer affairs person. You've done a lot down over the years. So tell people how you first got started.
Well, it is a most unusual story, and part of it is covered in my book, Talking While Black, but which will be out next fall. I was the office manager for the National Conference of Christians and Jews, and I had been involved in civil rights for a very long time. I was the first receptionist at UPS, the first black sales girl at Learners, and so I had kind of a reputation as an advocate, or like Rick, a troublemaker. So, so I was at a brotherhood dinner, and a gentleman came up to me. And the brotherhood dinner was this annual dinner that the National Conference of Christians and Jews under Ralph King would start. And a gentleman walked up to me. This is a true story. It sounds like Hollywood, but it's a true story. His name was David Chase. He later went to ABC. And he was the new operations manager for Channel 11, and it was WIIC then, and he was told to revamp it. He started talking to me, but he had a glass in his hand, and he had been drinking all night long, so he was following me around, so Rick will appreciate this. In true Bev Smith spirit, I said to him, he kept talking, and he said, would you like to be on television? And I thought, the next thing this drunk man is going to ask me is to see his artwork, you know. Got some artwork I want you to see. So I said that to him, and he laughed. And I said, and another thing, I don't date white men.
You're off to a great start.
I was off to a great start. And he hired me. But that's exactly how it began. And he went away, and I went away. The next day, a man I called my uncle, Walt Jones, who was the first African-American general manager for WAMA when it was owned by Leonard Walk, and who contacted Ron Davenport, Milt Washington, and others to get involved in purchasing the station, which later became Sheridan Broadcasting. Anyway, he was at the press club. And who was he sitting at the press club having dinner with? But David Chase. And David said to me, I met an interesting woman last night, but she told me she wasn't interested in me because I was a white man. And she didn't believe me. Do you know Bev Smith? And he said, that's my godniece. And he said, well, I want to hire her. I want to make her a reporter. I think she can do it. I had never been on radio or television before. And so Walt, Uncle Walt, as I called him, Walt Jones, loved him and miss him. He said, why don't you come and have lunch with us tomorrow? And he set the lunch up at the press club, and I met David Chase in an official way without a glass or ego, mine, thinking he was chasing me. And so that's literally how I got started. Then they introduced me to the man who would become my news director, who was By Williams, and he was an institution with the Mickey Mouse Club and all of that. And his name, in Pittsburgh, he should be taught for the Pittsburgh Communication. And he said to me, if you were given the job as a consumer reporter, this was in the 70s, the early 70s, and the consumer movement, the women's movement, the civil rights movement, all was hot. Very, very. Ralph Nader, everyone was hot. He said, put 50 articles, put 50 points down that you would like to cover, 50 stories, 50 themes. Show it to me. And I did, and we began to cross it off, and thus began my career.
Well, you know, you joined a lot of great folks who were on TV in Pittsburgh at that time. There was Mr. D. Thompson. There was Lynn Hayes Freeland. Vic
Lynn
Miles.
was on, at that time, Lynn was on the radio.
Yeah, she's doing radio back then.
Yeah, she was doing radio. She was at WDUQ, but the pioneers that I came up with, and these are the names that I knew, was Ray Coleman.
Right.
Remember Ray Coleman?
Oh, yeah,
Ray Coleman. Ray Coleman had a Saturday talk show that everyone in the city listened to. And he, D. Thompson, and this name ought to ring a bell, Kathy Milton.
Oh, yes. Miss
Not enough is not said about her. I mean, she's a mentor. I just love her. And she started at a time when there was literally no respect for blacks in media. And she endured discrimination like you would never believe. But we started the Black Journalist Club, and the rest is history. Those are, John Christian.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Also. John Christian was up at Channel 11, and I didn't know a camera A from a B-roll, okay? And he took me under his wings. I'd known him before, and he just he used to pick me up in the morning, and we would go over stories, and just, those are the people that I knew, and it was a different kind of an attitude than media today. And I'm not just talking locally, I'm talking nationally. Because in those days, any black journalist at the newspapers, at the Courier was really coming out 2 or 3 times a week, and it was huge in terms of being a political entity for the black community. And so these were the people, Jim Lewis, do you remember that name?
Yeah.
Jim Parks,
who
was the general manager at the Courier then. So we formed a group, and out of that group, the advocacy for journalism began. But what I saw then was people were more willing to work together than they seem to be now.
Wow.
Well, why do you suppose that that's going on? Because there is a need more than ever for, especially blacks in broadcasting, to work together. Well, how come that's not happening now?
Well, part of it is fear, and this is just my unscientific feeling. I'm going to lose my job, and I can't afford to lose my job, so I'm not going to associate with you. Because it's not cool to associate with blacks who speak up, whether the industry is television or oil, whether the industry is computers or chemical companies. If you advocate for African-American people nationally or locally, it's like all of a sudden, and it happened in the Bush administration, you became a pariah. People didn't really want to deal with you. And so I think that a lot of black journalists do not want to be identified as black, and those of us who do, and thank God there are those of us who do, we have difficult times sometimes. No, all the time. Might as well tell it like it is.
Yes.
All the time. So I think it's fear of losing jobs, fear of being identified as that black person. I can remember a program director telling me, you would go far if you would just stop being so black. And I said to him, not fully realizing that I had a daughter and I was separated and I had to work, I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll stop being black when you stop being white.
All right.
So that feeling, and this is a true story, that feeling still exists today, and I think that a lot of blacks are fearful. We used to have a camaraderie here, Regis Babonis and others. We used to have a camaraderie, and with that camaraderie, we would care for each other, talk to each other. There were blacks starting at each of the advertising firms. Now we're back to hardly any blacks in advertising firms. We should be more together, but the truth of the matter is, if you look at journalism, what's happening in our industry, the media, black radio disappearing, black newspapers disappearing, Ebony and Jet looking like Essence, we don't have a voice.
Right.
And people are afraid to be a voice. For fear you'll lose your job, and you will.
I have another question for you, and it goes to like what I'm seeing as a trend in bringing more black folks on the air, and I've noticed this particularly on like MSNBC. What do you think of that trend with all of a sudden over the past couple of years, all these new black faces on the TV?
Well, I would have to say, hurrah, hurrah! It's about time, and one day I'll be able to see the general manager and the news director of these major networks being an African American or a Spanish-speaking American or an African from the continent who worked in journalism. So I think it's a very, very good thing, but I don't want us to be fooled. First, we have to do kudos to CNN because CNN set the trend.
Right, they did.
Remember when ABC hired Matt Robinson, when Matt Robinson talked about the racism on college campuses and the racism in the industry that he was in, they fired him.
Right.
His ratings were high, and he was the first African-American anchor. And we can count them, one on each hand. Well, along came CNN. They hired a black anchor, and they've been hiring qualified, talented African-Americans ever since. Now, as to the new faces, it's a changing world. I was new. I was young. I was fresh. But the only thing that I resent more than anything is those of us who have tilled the soil and worked in the marketplace for a long time get no respect. You pass 40 in this industry, and if you are a woman, white, black, or orange, glowing in the dark, you can have a problem. But if you're a black, outspoken woman, not ashamed, not afraid, willing to stand up, you have a hard time. And so I think it's a good thing that we are seeing so many people. The only thing that I would hope is that they don't get caught up in the glamour of it all and forget who they are.
Exactly.
We used to have this standing joke at Channel 11 about John Christian. God bless his memory. John used to say to me, hey, baby, when you go on a story, and I wish I could do it like he used to do it, but when you go on a story, baby, what I want you to do is say, how does this affect blacks? Well, a lot of us don't have that anymore. Maybe it's because the news is colorless, but from where I sit, it is colored even more than ever, and in a negative way. So I think that it would be a grand idea if we were together, if we supported even more. Like, for example, if you're out, both of you are out, and you know someone who's in the business who could sit in for you, offer the opportunity. I did on my show, but people don't offer that opportunity to you to freelance, to fill in for them. That's a way to get young people, or that's a way to get people who have continuously worked in the marketplace back on the tube, back at the mic. But we don't do that. We're afraid.
I remember you gave some opportunities to Chris Moore to bring him on to do your show a few times.
Absolutely. Lynn Hayes Freeland.
Yeah, Lynn also. I think I was on the show with them twice.
Debbie Norrell.
Right, Debbie also.
They all filled in for me.
They
all filled in for me when I had the capabilities of making a decision to let them fill in for me. Yeah, no problem. I had no problem at all. Now, I'm not sure that their networks will allow them to do that, but I haven't even been asked. And that's the interesting thing about being in Pittsburgh. Had I been in Washington, D.C., or Maryland, or anywhere for that matter, I would have been freelancing. There's a fear, and there's a fear in the marketplace.
Well, let's since you talk about Washington, D.C., let's talk about what led you to be on BET with Our Voices.
It's another one of those stories. When I left Pittsburgh WTAE in 1980, I think it was 1986, I went to work for NBC Radio in Washington, D.C. And I was on from noon until 3, and that was unbelievable. And I had a 5-point share, and the least I had was a 4.8. And I had a reputation, and a man used to listen to me all the time, and his name was Bob Johnson. And a woman used to listen to me all the time, and her name was Deborah. And Deborah was the program director, and Bob was the owner. And so they were looking for someone to fill in for the show that they had been testing, if you can remember, And this is going way back, with Patti LaBelle and a whole lot of other folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the radio. And so they called me up, Deborah Tang and Stuart Perkins, and said, but wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself, because Waymer Johnson was a producer of our Voices, not our Voices, Vibrations here in Pittsburgh.
Oh,
and
wow.
if you guys remember when I did Vibrations, it was a really popular show.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was going to be doing some freelancing on the television show. They had hired him as a subcontractor to revamp the show. And he called me, and I did one show. And I came on home, and I thought, I was just on national television. And what an opportunity, and I didn't think any more about it. Then they called me again and again. And they kept calling me. And that's how it all began.
Thank God they did. I still fondly remember how proud I was when I saw you on there, and I was like, "Whoa, this is a homegirl sister on there."
Oh yeah, from Westinghouse.
And then you always called it so straight. So when we talk about the need for authentic black folk, and some folk won't understand what that means, and maybe that'll be another show. But I think earlier when you and Kevin were talking, the fear that's in this industry and a lot of industries, coupled with now we got a new problem, this whole notion of post-racial. It's not that folks got something against, quote-unquote, being black. They don't even understand that there is a legitimacy and need to be that. And that disturbs me greatly.
Well, that's partly our fault as an ethnic group of people. I don't say race, because we're the human race. We have been made and painted for eons to look as if we aren't human. There was once a law passed that said we were only so many fifths a human being.
Right.
So I would think that that's at the core of a lot of this. We're not organized. We're not together at all. And this is the old theme with us. Why? Because Willie Lynch is alive and well. And we don't like being black. And we ought to just say it. I mean, the fact that this is 2012 and you have people who are saying, I ain't no African. Well, what the heck do you think you are?
Right.
Come on, this isn't Bev Smith talking. This is white anthropologists and white genealogists and white people who are checking on things and looking at things and digging for things, who found that the oldest living woman in the world was found on the continent of Africa. And they claim that the DNA that you and I carry in our blood is the DNA of all civilization. We should feel proud about that. But because we don't teach it, or they don't teach it in school, do you go to the PTA meetings and find about the books? No, you do not. Do you have books in your home about blackness? I can tell you what, what's that Braxton girl that's wild? Tamar,
yeah.
I can tell you what Tamar is doing. I can tell you what the basketball wives are doing.
Right.
But I can't tell you about the man who died because of blood. And that's old news. What about the people that are new? How many know Ben Carson's name? How many people know that Chrysler 300 that we've been seeing on the street, the design for that was done by a black man, a black engineer? That at Xerox Corporation there was a black man, Maury Sons, who went to Westinghouse and he high school, and he was the man who was in charge of new inventions in the 70s and the 80s. How many of us know that? If we go to see a cowboy movie and we see a covered wagon, how many of us know that the brake on that wagon was for a black man? Got a basket on your bike? Slaves invented that basket because they had to carry packages.
Or the traffic light.
Right.
Well,
or the air conditioner. We can keep on going.
Or the cooling unit in the refrigerator. It's like I told a racist when he called me on the show years ago, and he was busy telling me, well, you people haven't contributed anything, blah, blah, blah. I said, are you on the phone, sir? And he said, yes. Oh, you going to try to tell me that a black man invented the telephone? I said, I'm going to tell you that a black man was involved. But I will tell you one step further. Alexander Graham Bell was deaf. He had a hearing problem. The man who took the design, who worked alongside of him, and took the design and made the instrument clearly so I can be heard and you can hear me and I can hear you, was a black man. It's a patent for it. And so these are the kinds of things that if you walk under an awning, but who knows that?
Mm-hmm.
Who listens to that? Who looks for themselves? Mothers will buy their little kids tennis shoes that cost $100 on a foot that's only going to grow within the next 3 or 4 weeks, but they won't buy them.
That's right.
A puzzle about blackness. We've got more information about blackness than ever before, being black in America, because that's unique.
Yes. As my now late father said on many occasions, the world is missing so much because the stories of black men and women have not been fully told. And there are so many stories that are unique to our experience and culture that need to be told. He used to say that all the time. Kevin and I had local historian Rashid Sundiata on, and we asked him about Black History Month, and he startled me. I said, what would you do? I see lately it doesn't have the same kind of fire and cutting edge, and it doesn't grab me like it used to. They seem to be, nothing wrong with singing and dancing and all that, but it really seems to be kind of watered down. And I said, what do you think we need to do? And he said, stop observing it. And for a minute I was startled, and I said, you're not serious, because he has a funny kind of sense of humor. Mm-hmm. But then he went on to say something very profound. He said, we ought to go back to the way it used to be and do it in our homes, in our churches, in the YMCA, in our community organizations, in clubs and fraternities and sororities. And I thought that was powerful, because I can still remember the first time I opened the newspaper on Martin Luther King Day, and they were advertising a white sale, and I'm sure it was pun intended. I looked at this like a white sale on Martin Luther King Day.
But that responsibility is on us. Mm-hmm. And I'm really tired of us, Rick and Kevin, looking outside of us for the answer. See, that's how we blew it. Mm. Our effort was noble. It has always been. From Fannie Lou Hamer to Sojourner Truth to Frederick Douglass to Booker T. Washington, on up the line to Martin and Malcolm and Meredith, Medgar Evers, and all of them. James Meredith, all of them. Our line has been clear. We wanted to be free. Mm-hmm. But what we did in our effort to be free, it was to say we want to be equal. If we have money, we ought to be able to spend it anywhere we want. If we're buying clothes, we ought to be able to try them on. These were important issues, but they were not the issue. And I think we made a mistake by making the issue. We wanted freedom and equality. We settled for integration. And all we have, in my opinion, is imitation. Mm. We do not have integration, and we need to quit saying that we're integrated. Right. This country is more polarized and more segregated than it has ever been at every level. Look inside corporate America. Mm-hmm. Look inside the companies that are here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. We're not even recognized. And, I don't know how political you all could be, but I have not heard, and I don't hear everything, I have not heard the mayor of this city address the issue of crime in our black community, and I haven't seen him do what Bob did before he died, and that was walk through the community. Mm. Now, did I miss something?
No, you're not.
No, that's pretty much. There was one time he did, but it's been a couple years.
Was it when he was running for office?
Of course,
probably.
You'll
close
probably
to
see
it.
him do it this spring.
Had to be.
Okay, but you see, that would not happen in the 70s and in the 60s because people like Nate Smith, Iwaru Ellis, Clyde Jackson, Nick Flournoy. Yeah. I don't want to miss anyone.
Bowie Hayden.
Bowie Hayden, Bubby Harrison.
Yeah.
On the north side, Jimmy Joe Robinson.
Right. Swamp Man.
You tell me about Swamp Man. Could call Swamp Man for anything, okay?
That's
you
right.
knew who to call, and everybody was on fire for freedom.
Right.
But in the words of a great Southerner, you niggers keep talking about being free. We're not. We are not. And what we are, in my opinion, is people who have lost their way. We worship the golden calf. Any time a black woman will put a necklace around her neck in diamonds or crystals or whatever that says #1 pregnant dog bit, that is just, why would you call yourself that?
Right.
That's how far we've come. That's our fault.
That's true.
And I think personally that we ought to internalize. Because here's what happens. We have a meeting. We go to the meeting, and Rick, you and I have been at many.
Yes.
We sit down, we get the plan, and then everybody wants to integrate to me. Well, we don't want to offend. Doggone it, you've been offended.
Right.
Did anybody invite you to a meeting that they were having? No.
I wish other folks would worry about us as much as we worry about other folks.
They don't worry about us at all.
Exactly.
I would like to segue into something that that's a thing that I talk about a lot, Miss Bev, and you know this from talking to me down over the years and from where I came from. But there is a problem with black communications, so-called urban radio here in this country, and like you said earlier, we don't work together enough.
Well,
so
it's the golden calf again.
Mm-hmm.
You know that the story is that Moses led the people through the wilderness for how many years? Hundreds of years. And he led them to what would be called the Promised Land.
Mm-hmm.
And when their leader, hello Martin Luther King,
Mm-hmm.
got killed, went up in the mountains, ours got killed.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't step up. Our civil rights organizations are loaded with people who like to serve on boards just so they have their name on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Hello?
Yeah.
We have to roll up our sleeves, wash those dishes, sell those chicken wings, make some greens and bring them into somebody. But we don't do that anymore. First of all, because we don't have a community. I rode through Homewood the other day, and I wanted to go to Dorsey's and get some music.
Mm-hmm.
I said I was tired of going everywhere else. I was going to go to Dorsey's. It was closed. And I didn't see any businesses. And I sat for a moment. Now, there were businesses lined up there, but they weren't open.
Mm-hmm.
Or they didn't look like they were open, and I didn't get out and check. I did not get out and check it to see because they looked closed. But when I was a child, living in Homewood, with Baxter School as a high school,
Right.
and Westinghouse School is the senior high, with churches involved, with religious education as a course you could take, an elective in school, with band and ballet and dancing and parental involvement, things were different in Homewood. So where are the people who care? People are afraid in Homewood. They're afraid to come out of their door because of some hoodlums.
Mm.
And I want to talk to their mamas. That's why next year I'm having a National Women's Conference here in Pittsburgh.
Oh, beautiful.
You'll hear about it. African-American women calling them back. It's time for us to build up our community again. We got to put away all that junk. Women fighting on Housewives of Atlanta
Right.
or whatever, pulling each other's hair and slapping each other.
The crime and the destabilization of our communities is so just a horrific crime. That's what it is. And the other thing is, and I've been telling folks, and I don't think as a community we've dealt with this. For the first time in my life, six decades of life, the majority of African Americans in Allegheny County live outside the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they ran.
And it's like, okay, what are the political, economic, social, community building, communication, organizational, resource sharing implications of this? We need to talk about this. We have people living in communities where we've never lived before, and I fret that they're out there they're cutting public transportation.
They don't have it.
There's no community organization.
They don't have it.
There may or may not be a church.
They may
You
not.
know, what is their
Well, they wanted to
infrastructure?
move out there because they thought they were the Jeffersons and they were moving on up.
Mm.
They moved to be better. And so they thought if I sell my property in the Hill District, I remember being on Whammo years ago, saying don't sell your houses.
Mm-hmm.
That property is valuable. Look at how valuable the property is.
Yes.
And guess what? Regentrification is here all the way up to Webster Avenue where Madison School
Oh, yeah.
is.
Oh, yeah.
It's all well.
I'm not knocking that,
It's all
but people are coming in and they're getting loans to improve their property.
Mm-hmm.
We can't even get a grocery store in the Hill District
Right.
for crying out loud.
And they're buying homes in Homewood, $10,000, $5,000. I mean,
Come on, we don't even know those homes are available.
It's crazy. It really is.
And they're getting federal taxpayers' dollars to improve those homes.
Right.
An incentive to get them to recreate the community. Well, when I was living in Homewood, If you lived in Homewood, come on now. It was like living in Sugartop. You had arrived.
Yep.
There were families and working people and communities where people cared. People sat out on their porch, and when you walked by, hi, Mrs. Smith, hi, Mr. Adams, hi, Mr. Ed. That's the way it went.
Yep.
But it's not like that anymore.
One of the most powerful things I've witnessed was the town hall meeting you had at the August Wilson Center with Minister Farrakhan and the congressman.
Of them.
And some of these same things that we just talked about were brought up back then, and we need to follow up on that and get busy. Just like Mr. Farrakhan said, we got to get busy, and
That's
yesterday.
Right. Well, first of all, let me honor Minister Farrakhan, and I don't care who doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. The man is ill. Mm-hmm. He was rushed to the hospital with a high temperature, and our prayers are with him. I'm a Christian. He's a Muslim. We respect each other, and I'm praying for his recovery.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Having that being said, when I invited the minister, and I love him and he loves me, he said, Sister Bev, do you know what you are getting ready for? Which is what the people representing Jeremiah Wright, because my next town hall meeting was going to be with Jeremiah Wright.
All right.
And we were going to talk about the role of the black church. But anyway, there are outside forces, and we acquiesce.
Mm-hmm.
We allow other people to tell us how to run our community. Yowza, what we gonna do? That's not right. We're intelligent, we're bright, we're alert, we're made in the image of God. We are the first man and the first woman. Stand up and be counted. When you can recite to me all the people in that vampire movie that's out right now, Twilight,
right?
And you can't tell me the founding members of the Congressional Black Caucus. You can't tell me who Adam Clayton Powell was.
Right.
You can't tell me who Marion McKeever was. You can't tell me these things, then I'd have to say that we are lost.
Yes.
And until we recognize, until we understand that piece of paper you have with your PhD, that's all it is. You're one step away from losing your job, too, okay?
That's right.
So you're not any better than that guy that's scrubbing the floor or driving the bus. It's time for us to put away those differences. Much is at stake, and much has been lost.
Well, we're going to get it together, I know. Got to ask you, certainly. You mentioned a book, and I know you're doing a number of projects, radio and otherwise. Why don't you tell us, what is Bev Smith up to these days?
Well, I did something that probably I will look back and go, girl, have you lost your mind? I built a studio in my home.
All right.
And I decided to syndicate myself. And I'm thanking Lauren Mann because he's carrying my show here in the city, and go to those owners of stations in places like Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, Jackson, Mississippi. While I was going to WWRL, we're on there in New York, WTHE in New York. While we're doing these things, oh my goodness, we're spreading. So I am growing. I'm learning a lot. It is very interesting trying to syndicate yourself, but we're doing it. And the good thing about it is that I'm in a position where I can decide what I want to do and not have to find out whether or not it's going to hurt management and their position on boards and their friends at the clubs, and I don't have to deal with that. So that's one thing that I'm doing.
Great.
We're kicking up activities now. There's a committee being formed to bring a conference here, and I'm working on that. I'm working on 3 books.
Ooh.
One is called Conversation with Jesus. That'll probably be out in spring. Interview with Jesus, I should say.
Okay.
And it's a fictionalized story with real facts. And the second one is Talking While Black. And in that one, I will tell everything that I've been through in this business. Every living, loving thing.
Oh, all right.
It'll be my open diary about this business and what I've seen happen, and lives that I've seen saved, lives that I've seen raised up, and lives that I've seen destroyed in this business. And what has happened to me, being shot at, being called the B word and the N word and all other kind of stuff that has happened, being shot at. And that's because I did not back down with Minister Farrakhan. And we had panels of people who dropped out because they were fearful. But I didn't call Minister Farrakhan to this city to talk about any other ethnic group. I invited him here to talk about black men and our role and what was wrong with the black community.
Right.
And that's all we talked about. Publicly, that is. That's all we talked about. So I think we need an attitude adjustment. If people knew, black people, I'm talking to them right now, if they love themselves like you love them, Rick, and you love them, Kevin, and I love them, we would be so great. We would be so wonderful.
That's true.
It would be so encouraging for our children to see us united. And I want to see that before I leave the planet.
Well,
so that's what I'm doing. Same old thing.
Hey.
Same old thing. Speaking. People are beginning to realize that I'm available to do speaking again, and they're paying me to come across the county and across the country and speak, and I'm thrilled about that.
Great.
So that's what I'm doing.
Well, we're thrilled, and God bless you for all you've done and all you're doing, and keep doing it. The books sound exciting. I want to read them. I can't wait to read them. I cannot wait.
Oh, you know what you could do for me, Rick, and I really mean this. What you could do for me is when I get the book out, would you be willing to, hold on just a minute, would you be willing to read it for me and give me your comments, you and Kevin?
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
we'll definitely do that.
Okay.
We'll bring you back on and talk to you about it, too.
Oh, you know I love that.
All right. All right.
All right, good luck to you, gentlemen.
Okay.
And I want to tell you how much it means, first of all, to be able to talk to two strong African-American men, and secondly, to be respected by African-American men, by the two of you. So I thank you for giving me respect. I thank you for giving me love, and you honor me by inviting me on the show. I thank you for that.
Well, one more thing. Let's give people your website so they can.
We've got. Oh yeah, thank you, yes. Kevin. Thank you. First of all, you can go to BevSmithTalks.com, TALKS.com. You can also go to our brand new page that's up in just killing them, and that is thebevsmithshow.net. You can go there, click on archives, and you can hear the shows that you have missed. We have them up on there.
Beautiful. All right.
Okay, Miss Bev, you know I love you.
I love you too.
Same here. Happy holidays to you.
Happy holiday and much love
all right.
to the people of Pittsburgh who have always loved me as much as I've loved them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you need us, call us.
I will.
All right. Okay.
Happy holiday.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Man.
Miss Bev Smith laid it on the line, as she always does.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
The real thing. Genuine lady, and just so committed. I mean, always. I mean, just to watch her over the years.
Right.
And the things, her courage and her insight and her willingness to just step up to the plate. And as we were talking, so many folks in whatever field of endeavor or occupation that they have, they're afraid to be authentic. And I don't understand that. I mean, you could do a lot of things to me, and I know, protocol and everything. But there is a line, and the line stops when I got to deny my identity, my selfhood, my community, my essence. I mean, that's just, you might as well, put some dirt on me. I'm not doing that. I don't care what it is. I'm not doing that. No one else is asked to do that. Back to the Invisible Man, almost. Ralph Ellison or something.
Next week, Rick and I will be in the studio.
That's right.
But we're going to close off the show with something I wanted to play during our midway break. And it's a great way to end the show. It's a song by Robert Randolph and the Family Band, dedicated to Miss Bev Smith. And the tune is called Bless. We're going to close off the show with that. And we will check y'all out next week. Peace.
Peace.
Sometimes it ain't easy. more than with you I can be stronger.